This is the Environmental Echo, brought to you by PW Grosser Consulting, and I am your host, Paul Boyce, President and CEO of PW Grosser. And today we've got a great guest, one of our clients and friends, Mark Hissey from Discoveryland Company. Mark's been with Discoveryland for, several years now. And he's originally from Wales in the United Kingdom. Discoveryland is a development company based out of Scottsdale, Arizona. And they are doing some work here on Long Island, and we're involved with those projects with him. Mark actually came to the United States back in 1980 to study at Harvard University. Little school like that. That's a nice place. I've been there a few times. But he's been involved with a variety of different types of real estate types of positions here on Long Island and in the United States. But most of all, Mark is a big fan of golf. I'd like to say I am too. I do enjoy the game. But if you could call it a game, when I'm playing, it's more like a shooting match, all right, with a crooked rifle. But it is a fun sport. It's a good time. There's a lot of courses here on Long Island. I've looked it up. There's I forgot exactly how many different courses there are in between Nassau and Suffolk County, but there are literally dozens, if not pushing hundreds.
That's correct.
And there are both public and private, and all over the place, real interesting stuff. But he's been involved with a couple of really unique courses. One that comes to particular to mind is Sabonic Golf Club out in Southampton, which is a really terrific course and was a great project to be a part of with Mark. And recently they had held the U.S. Women's Open out there in 2013, which Mark was the director for of that, which, interesting enough, was won by Inbee Park, if I remember correctly.
That is correct.
Quite an event. But today we're going to focus on some of the environmental issues that golf courses face as they develop and operate and maintain these things. Maybe a little bit about the public perception on these courses. How they fit and work with the environment here, particularly on Long Island, and maybe in some other parts of the country. But it's certainly Long Island is a unique environment. And Mark, that's what I'd like to start with. Is you've been involved with projects throughout the United States and around the world, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
But as I just mentioned, Long Island is a very unique region. What makes it so unique here to do a project on Long Island?
I think it's the combination of there just being a very heavy population density out here, and also abundant water resources. We've got a tremendous population on a relatively small place, and so if we don't pay really strict attention to what's going on, the water resources are going to get destroyed. It's been in rough shape over the past years, and I think that we've really got to make sure that we find genuine solutions to the issues that we have. It's not just groundwater; it's the bay waters. We've had a very robust shellfish industry in Long Island, which is in dire straits. And it all fits into one another, and I think it's about time that we look at realistic efforts to protect the environment, protect our water resources, and take care of a growing population out here. We can't let the economy go to waste.
Now, you touched on a lot of good points there that are germane to what the Environmental Echo is all about. The environment, you mentioned not only the groundwater, but the surface water. And one of the biggest issues we're facing on Long Island with our water supply and our surface water bodies is nitrogen, and that is a key component of fertilizer. And we know golf courses have a lot of turf, a lot of grasses that do need to be fertilized and maintained. Can you just share with us a little bit maybe what golf courses are trying to do to manage some of the, say, nitrogen issues?
So I'll address that by saying, first of all, I got to give some credit to Dr. Chris Gobler. He has done a tremendous amount of work in taking care of the bay waters around us. He's really become a driving force in bringing that to the forefront. He's a smart guy, and he presents himself well, and I think he's a real game changer in Long Island. And Chris has become a friend of mine over the last 5 or 10 years since I've gotten to know him. But I go back further to, for instance, when we built Sabonic. There was a golf course that was built out in Bridgehampton called The Bridge, and when that went through a very rigorous protocol for making sure they protected the environment properly, but it was really focused mostly on water testing, accompanied by an integrated turf health management plan, which they devised along with the town of Southampton and with Cornell University. And they came up with this really aggressive plan to make sure that they protected the groundwater. But it was just focused solely on testing. They came up with a list of pesticides which had very low velocity and very low toxicity. And they also really micromanaged how much nitrogen they put down in order to make the golf course look right. I think in days gone by, 60s, 70s, into the 80s, things were just done willy-nilly, to be honest with you. There was that sort of trap that they fell into with Augusta National where everything looked really emerald green and everybody wanted the golf course to look like that.
Yep.
And even that was a little bit fictitious, because I've been to Augusta a number of times, and when you actually get on the ground there, it's not absolutely perfect, and that's the way golf is supposed to be. That's the way the environment is supposed to be. But I'm digressing a little bit here. So just going back to what we did at Sabonic, when we were looking at permitting there, we took things one step further. We decided to embrace the integrated turf health management plan, which had worked very well at the bridge. But we went one step further in that we said, okay, we're going to give a security blanket for the golf course. Most of the product that we use on a golf course is on greens. They're under a tremendous amount of pressure through mowing really tightly, rolling them. And so it requires you to put a lot more product on them. So what we did up there was we lined the greens. And so that was a really innovative effort on our part. It had been done twice before, up at the Vineyard Club in Martha's Vineyard and at the Preserve in Northern California. But we decided to take it a step further than that even, and we created a closed-loop system with it where the greens had their own irrigation and drainage systems. And we've been Sabonic has been undergoing these, this scrutiny now for the last 16 years. And the water quality results have been nothing short of spectacular. So the fact that golf courses, I feel, get unfairly maligned by some of the environmental community is completely contradicted by hard evidence that's available out there. That's
terrific. I love the lining concept. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that works? What kind of liner is under the greens, and how you collect, let's say, the excess runoff and I don't want to call it leachate like a landfill, but the excess maybe fertilizer or nitrogen that then gets past the turf and onto the liner.
So it's we created them with a 40 mil high density polyethylene liner. We found that PVC had a chance to deteriorate, so we decided to go with something a bit more robust. Mm-hmm. Once we knew what kind of greens we wanted, design, we custom-made these liners. They were made at a company out in Colorado. They were shipped into New York, and then they were welded in place. And then an important factor on this was we had USGA green specifications for the green up above it. So that is drainage tile, gravel, sand, greens mix, and then finally hydroseed on the top. And that gives you a really solid base for growing healthy turf. And if you've got healthy turf, you can minimize the amount of product that you use on them. So as far as the leachate is concerned, we were speculating as to whether we could do things just right, where there'd be very little of that. And if you control how much you irrigate the place, then you can do that. And at times, it's been very difficult to get any leachate off it to test.
Oh, wow.
So, if you pay attention, you can really manage these things tremendously well. And I think gradually the golf course community, sure, I'll bet there's still bad actors out there, but in general, it's undergone a tremendous transformation in how they do business. These guys are scientists. They're not, they're not ex-potato farmers. They know what they're doing, and they produce a great product, and it's environmentally safe.
Wow. So you mentioned that turf structure there, the various layers. So how deep is the liner below, say, the the grass.
It's about 18 inches.
So it's 18 inches down.
Yep.
And then I assume it's piped to like a tank that may have a recirculating pump to use it for fertilizing or irrigation, or
actually it's diverted to its own irrigation pond.
Perfect.
In order to irrigate the main part of the golf course, the most of the golf course, that is water that is pumped out of the aquifer. Then that is used everywhere on the golf course, but the water that comes off the greens is filtered to a completely separate irrigation pond, and that water is used on the greens also.
Wow. So were there any other unique environmental aspects to Sabonic besides, say, like just the greens management? What about the fairways or the roughs or the tees? Anything else?
Again, that's the integrated turf health management program. There are 6 irrigation wells out there, along with 18 lysimeters, which are essentially tripwires to give you an indication as to whether something is going south. And again, all of those get checked twice a year. As a matter of fact, they were done 4 times a year to begin with, but because the results were so good, it was deemed appropriate to ratchet them back to twice a year because we wouldn't get any extra data that was of any use, to be honest with you.
So besides the application of like fertilizers or maybe pesticides or fungicides or whatever else you might have to actually treat the turf with, water conservation, that's a big deal. You brought it up. We're on an aquifer. It's a sole source aquifer here on Long Island, which means, everybody in Nassau and Suffolk, we get our drinking water from the ground. It's a vital, important resource to us. It's not inexhaustible. I mean, there is a lot of water down there. There's a lot of clean water down there too. But again, it's not infinite. So we do have to take care how we manage that precious resource. I know the state, the DEC, they have, pumpage caps and those sort of things in place. But what do they do with Sabonic to manage how much water they use or how they conserve water?
They've got a fantastic superintendent out there who really knows what he's doing. His name's Garrick Boddington, good friend of mine. And he, it's trial and error. It's a certain degree. They've got caps also on there. It's not like they can just keep pumping, infinite amounts of water out of the ground and using it on the golf course. But it's a matter of making sure that don't water when you don't need it. It really is experience that counts.
What about you've heard climate change or global warming, terms like that. Do you see that any effects to water usage, water consumption, or any other type of golf course management? Have you guys seen anything recently affecting, like temperatures going up or severe storms or anything?
Well, with Discovery Land in particular, we've got a lot of our places that are out west, and it's been a real concern for us that we've got some massive fires out there. For instance, up in Idaho this year, where we have a place called Gaza Ranch. There was there's not only a fear of having these forest fires come ripping through the property, but also the fact that you've got a golf course that hasn't been used to these conditions before, and it's been really difficult. It's been really difficult. You've got to some degree you've got to embrace brown a little bit. This emerald green look is like I said. It's funny. High definition TV made a big difference with the perception of Augusta, because now all of a sudden you saw, well, it's not like it looked in the 80s. It actually isn't perfect, and that's okay. So I think that people probably years ago were trying to attain a level that was fictitious anyway.
Unattainable.
Yeah, completely unattainable. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh wow. Well, that's interesting. I'd like to get away from Sabonic a little bit and now go into sort of a current project that Discovery Land is working on. It has certainly received a lot of publicity and press in the last 3, 4, 5 years or so, and that would be what is now known as the Lewis Road PRD, which PRD is Planned Residential Development, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
That is out in East Quogue, which is in the town of Southampton. That is, you guys are looking to currently develop a new golf course, 18-hole golf course, with some residential units. If I'm not mistaken, was it
118.
118, okay. With some other amenities like clubhouse and obviously some athletic fields and a few other, nice features. Can you tell us what's going on with the status of that project right now?
Yeah, we received approval from the Pine Barrens Commission earlier on this year. That was a lengthy process, and as you know, there's there's some very specific conditions that you need to meet in order to get their approval. Luckily enough, judging by the Pine Barrens Commission, they voted that we passed all 31 that were appropriate to us. So yeah, we got their approval, which was quite a difficult task. But I think that's indicative of the fact that we are completely committed to doing the right thing out here from an environmental standpoint. It's morally and practically the right thing to do. You cannot operate willy-nilly and do whatever you want in the environment, and so I think that that's an indication of our commitment to doing the right thing, and so and the Pine Barrens Commission realized that.
Yeah, I would love to get into some of the environmental aspects that you guys are facing or challenges that you've taken on. Like we could start with the residential aspect, putting in a sewage treatment plant, sewering the whole site, as opposed to individual sanitary systems. It's certainly you guys have the density to do pretty much anything you want in terms of the size of the site. I shouldn't say anything you want, but within reason. Tell us a little bit about the sewage treatment plant that you guys are planning.
So we were there's 5 acre zoning on this property, 609 acres, and we really, all we need, at the time we started the project, we wouldn't have even needed IA systems. But now the IA systems are on board, obviously, that would be a requirement to put in. But still, it was 5 acre density. We were in really good shape from an environmental standpoint. However, as an indication of Discovery's commitment to, again, doing the right thing, we decided we were going to put a sewage treatment plant in there to up the level even more. So even though we do have that 5 acre density, we're going to make that water, rather than it being, at a level of 20, we're hopefully going to get it down to, in low single digits.
Single digits, yeah.
And that will be a huge boost to the environment. And we've actually got and I've got to give kudos here to PW Grosser, because it was your founder's brilliant idea to come up with this. Was we have a situation out there that's was really just circumstance just foisted upon us, but there are farm fields that are to the northwest of the property.
Yep.
And Paul Grosser from your place thought up the idea that if we could put intercept wells to intercept the plume of water which is going to be coming off those farm fields forever, we could use that nitrogen-laden water on the golf course, and that would eat up more of the nitrogen and prevent it from going into the bay. Paul provided all the calculations to show that was academically sound, and that will create a situation that is going to really clean up the bays. That's has no direct effect on us, but I think it's a great residual benefit of building our project, and it's a unique situation where this golf course is going to be able to prevent a very long, a perpetual problem.
I think it's a great idea. The whole concept of using what's there as opposed to bringing in more. You're taking it out of the environment, so it's almost like a negative effect on the amount of nitrogen that's there. We are removing what's being put in and using it to maintain the turf.
That's correct. Paul came up with the calculations that were that golf course not there, the situation would be worse.
Oh, I don't doubt it. And Mr. Gobler and everybody else who've studied places like the Bay and Weesuck Creek and other features, surface water bodies that are near and around the golf course, they've all agreed. It's a benefit.
Absolutely.
So that's tremendous. And it's been great to be a part of that project with you guys. Anything else out there that's the in terms of Lewis Road PRD? What you guys are looking forward to doing, maybe with the community?
Yeah, well, we made in the original project, we made a huge amount of commitments to getting the project approved. They're pretty well documented in the press. Unfortunately, the first time around, for whatever reason, the science wasn't paid attention to, and our original approval was not received. And as a result, there were a lot of benefits that were lost. And I think that's kind of a sad state of affairs. I wish that we would. I really dislike the way the politics overlaps with science. Ultimately, science has got to win, and people don't create their own science. And this is very much a situation as to where a really good project could have been approved first time around, and politics got in the way.
Oh, man, I could really digress and jump right into current events with what you said, and I couldn't agree with you more. Politics versus science, and sometimes they just they don't align, and it's a difficult situation.
Yeah.
In the past, we've mentioned a little bit of this. Golf courses have been specifically targeted by opponents as being polluters, of the region's groundwater. But you've already made this as your case. But what kind of experience have you had with saying no, that's not the case, and what have you used to back up put your money where your mouth is to tell these guys we're not having that effect?
I take a look at the results that have happened out in the town of Southampton alone. There are 2 golf courses now that have been extensively analyzed over the last 20 years. Their water quality results have been nothing short of spectacular. And it's living proof right there. There's 2 lab tests that are going on in perpetuity that is proving that a golf course being managed the right way can do wonderful things. And look, I won't make any bones about it. I do love the game. Like you, I think you indicated that I'm not a great golfer, but I love the game,
Yep.
And I love being out there in the open. And I think that when you have pioneering golf courses like Golf at the Bridge and Sabonic Golf Club, and now what we're doing here, I think that's the proof is in the pudding. The gentleman who founded Sabonic is a man who's near and dear to my heart, who I worked for 30 years in this very building, as it turns out, ironically. But Michael Pascucci made a very firm commitment to be doing the right thing. And, hey, we held a women's open, and everybody loved it. And so you can have excellence, and you can protect the environment. That's proof.
I love it. But what's being done to help educate the public to understand that the perception they have is maybe not reality? It isn't as bad as they think or seem to claim.
It would be nice if the golf authorities reached out a little bit more, to be honest with you. National Golf Foundation, maybe the USGA to some degree. I think that they could up their efforts to engage with the environmental communities to show what golf is really all about. Unfortunately, I'd say an awful lot of the environmental groups use golf as a convenient scapegoat, rather than zero in on scientifically who are the real culprits for the dire situations that we have around here. I know we have to grow food, but we have to grow food responsibly so it doesn't affect people's drinking water and the shellfish industry and recreation out in the bays. It's a symbiotic relationship that needs to be had, and I think that it's incumbent upon the golf community to reach out a bit more, but I think it's also incumbent upon the politicians and environmental groups to sit down and genuinely want to address real issues in an open manner rather than having presupposed ideas that are factually incorrect.
Interesting. Let me ask you a question, a little off what we just talked about, but my grandmother was born in 1900, died in like 1998, 99, almost 100 years old. And before she died, I asked her, what was, over your life, what was the biggest change, biggest improvement you've seen with, anything? And she went on to say, it was medicine. From 1900 to 1999, how it improved with, being able to look inside the body without having to cut it open, and treating people and healthcare and all that stuff. So with over your career with golf courses, what do you see as the biggest environmental improvement over the last several decades? What are the biggest changes you've seen roll out and have some real impact?
The way that the golf courses have been managed by the superintendents. I mean, if you look at how things were in the, it was really an afterthought, was how you look after the golf course. We've gone through an interesting transition. If American golfers go over to Europe and play golf, they say, oh, it's awesome. Golf course is really rustic and it looks really cool. That type of golf course used to be unacceptable in America. The moment they get on the plane and come back to the States, then it's a different story. So I would say that you've got superintendents now who, rather than being transformed turf growers or farmers or whatever, which had happened years ago, had guys who were going to college doing real programs, who were learning about the science of growing turf. And it's come on in leaps and bounds. I mean, you've got different genetic types of turf that do well in certain areas and not in others, ones that are more disease resistant, ones that don't need so much water. And so it's the technology has improved it, but it's also the education with the superintendents, where these guys are brilliant and they got a very difficult job and they do it well.
I got to agree with you. I've seen some courses offered. I've even seen some textbooks on turf management and stuff, and it just, from an engineering standpoint, I was totally impressed.
Yeah.
So that's great.
The smart guys, Paul.
Without a doubt, it's more to than just putting some fertilizer down and watering the lawn, so to speak, like I do in my backyard. That's just by, like you said, complete hapstance luck that I get green grass. All right. But Discoveryland, you guys are also working with a former Surfside hotel in West Hampton Beach that's now known as the Dune Deck.
Yeah.
Right? That's another interesting project. And some of the listeners know I'm an avid surfer. I love the beach. I love the water. So I've been down there many, many times. I know the area very well. What are some of the environmental and resiliency issues that Discoveryland's faced while pursuing that development?
That one's gone pretty painlessly. Our environmental issue there really was flooding. That was an area that was really susceptible to flooding, and during Superstorm Sandy, that particular area got really battered. And so when we rebuilt Dune Deck, we decided what we'll do is demolish everything. So we took it down, pulled all the piles out, and we lifted the whole site and repiled the whole site. So, even though we were required to lift the site, that wasn't a bad thing because it improved the views.
And it is a nice view down there.
But there were also, that was a legacy that it had been going on for, it had been there since the 40s, I believe. And so it was a sort of a random number of buildings, a lot of which encroached into the dunes, which wasn't really environmentally a good thing. And so we came up with a design where we pulled everything back off the beach, and we pulled in from our neighbors also, which gave them a little bit more breathing space. And then the whole site got lifted. And one of the things that we did have to pay attention to down there was the piping plovers. They're federally protected bird, and that was something that we needed to work around, which we did very diligently. And the DC were great partners with us on that. They couldn't have been nicer. And we got the place built in pretty quickly. We're actually facing similar situations up at the Lewis Road PRD. There's issues with the northern long-eared bat, which we know is an endangered species. We're really going out of our way to make sure that gets taken care of, and we're working hand in hand with the Pine Barrens Commission and with the environmental officer over at Southampton to make sure that we do everything right up there. We're 100% committed to it.
Glad to hear it, and we're glad to be a part of that with you. So just between the two projects, is there any, sort of interrelation between the two? Once Lewis Road's developed, is there going to be any type of,
They're not linked per se. They
Okay.
are two separate projects. They happen to be in close proximity to one
Yep.
another. I would guess that an awful lot of people will end up joining both.
Okay.
But so far, things have been going great down at Dune Deck. It's been going great guns, and people seem to love it down there, and food's great.
Yes, it is. One last question on Lewis Road PRD.
Yeah.
Maybe not last, but do we have a start date in mind yet? When are we going to break ground? As the engineers here, we're excited to build something, to work on it with you. I mean, I know there's still a lot of stuff to work out yet, but
I can't wait to start writing those checks for you, believe me. No, it's. I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to get an okay in the first quarter of next year to be able to start work. We just need to get a couple of decisions made. Got to hear on a couple of things before we got to file a final plat with the Town of Southampton Planning Department. But that should happen this fall, and I'm anticipating that everything's going to go really well with that, and hopefully we'll get the green light to start in the new year.
Oh gosh, it's been a long time coming. We're really looking forward to it for you guys.
I can't wait.
Me neither can we. So then, just to wrap things up, Mark, we're don't want to take up your entire day here, and we appreciate your time. But I know you guys have, you've worked on numerous golf courses. You're working on one on Long Island right now in a climate where a lot of golf courses are, they're going out of business. A couple of them closed down. They're redeveloping. They're putting up whatever apartments, condos where some used to be. I could think of one right in proximity to our own office in Bohemia. What are the keys to maintaining a successful golf course in the current economic and social climates?
Well, I liken it to this. There are, just like the restaurant business, you got a number of different cuisines you can go to. You can go to Indian, you can go to Italian, you can go to Chinese, whatever. Golf course isn't one big business. There are a number of different segments in it. You got low-end private, you've got high-end private, you got low-end public, you got high-end public. You've got resort golf, which is what we are, or rather residential golf, excuse me. Then you got resort golf also. There's a number of different sectors there, and each one needs to be managed differently. With a lot of private clubs, some of them just overspent, didn't run things well, and just didn't survive. Ironically, one of the biggest shots in the arms for the golf business in the last 4 decades has been COVID. It is the
no pun intended there with the shot in the arm. Huh?
Oh God, you got me. No, it was. It's been tremendous. It was one of the first activities that was said. Well, that one's probably quite safe, and that's the way it has turned out. So I mean, the amount of golf being played last year has been tremendous compared to every other year. Went absolutely through the ceiling everywhere.
Yeah, I've
Europe,
seen it,
around the world. So yeah, it was a big difference, and it was great for the golf industry in general because we were starting to fall on hard times, no question about it. We overbuilt. There's no question about that either. That went. There were just too many courses that were built, in the 70s and 80s, but now it's sort of turned full circle. It seems to be thriving again.
I mean, anytime I go down to a course, there's always people waiting to get on, waiting for a tee time, or it's just there. To me, it seems like there's a demand,
Yep.
But it was weird to see a few of them, close their doors and become something else after years in business.
Yeah. Generally, they were private clubs. Yep.
They were.
Yep.
So, Mark, as I said, we'd like to wrap this up. Do you have any last thoughts or ideas you want to share, or anything we didn't cover today?
For me, it's just, I found the whole water issue, and I've learned an awful lot from you guys over the years. It was something that wasn't on my radar at all 20 years ago, but now, I'm very conscious of it. And, the one thing that I would just love to stress is I hate the fact that science gets trodden over by politics. Ultimately, I think it's incumbent upon the politicians who are in a position to do something about it, is to really do the right thing and listen to the scientists and see, not come up with their own ideas for political expediency or whatever. I think it's really important to do the right thing for the people in general, and that's to protect the water.
Well said, Mark. And that's, germane to PW Grosser, or
Yep.
PWGC. We started out as a water resources company. We're a lot more than that these days, but that is one of our core focuses, and we'll stand by you on that 100%. So I do want to thank you today for your time and having you as a guest. Again, this is Mark Hissey, a Senior Vice President with Discoveryland Company based out of Scottsdale, Arizona. And again, I'm Paul Boyce, the host, President and CEO of PWGC. If you guys have any questions or comments or issues you'd like us to further address regarding this topic, please reach out to us at our website, pwgrocer.com/podcast, and we'd be happy to get in touch with you. Thank you for listening to the Environmental Echo today, and we look forward to seeing you guys soon in the future.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Mark.